All right, guys, so congratulations. What a brilliant film. I was just talking to Ava about this. You know what's crazy is I had no idea about this loophole, and I'm guessing most of America doesn't either. You know, how does America find out about what's going on right now?
America has to be willing to be honest, because a lot of times history is presented as a feel-good story of how, plucky pioneers got from here, from there to here and made us great, whatever that might be, right? And history's tough. History is painful. History is the story of things like this where people are doing awful things to other people and rationalizing it and really in ways that have just completely shaped our present. So if we're not honest and confronting and we're not willing to do the hard work of reckoning with that history, change can't happen.
You guys have obviously seen this firsthand. When you look at the epidemic that's going on, there's only so much you can show in a film. What are we not seeing that's not in the film?
I would say one of the big issues that you do begin to see a little bit in the film, Ava's brilliant, so she touched on it very thoughtfully, is the fact that, if you can take people out of prison, you can place them back in communities, but that doesn't mean they're no longer incarcerated. With electronic monitoring and the wave of mass surveillance that we have going on in our neighborhoods that are continuing to target black people, like the Boston aerial surveillance or the illegal use of stingray devices, you can move people around, you can take down the walls, but that doesn't mean the bars are actually gone.
You brought up an interesting point because I think one of the things the film really touches on, which you forget about, is it's one thing to be incarcerated in jail, but that incarceration lasts once you're out of jail as well. Talk to me about the effects of what this can do, not only on the individuals, but the families as well.
Well, it's a cascading effect, right? I mean, historians define slavery or some historians define slavery as what we call social death. And that persists, right? Because what that means is that you are outside of civil society. You are dead, so to speak. You are not a person. You don't enjoy, and so as a slave, you are socially dead. But look at mass incarceration today. Prisoners are socially dead. They disappear into prisons, and when they come out, they still do not rejoin civic society. They might as well be dead in terms of the way that society views them. And so you have this cascading effect where it accumulates over time, right? And so centuries worth of social death or being seen as outside of the community or society, look at the effects that that's had. And so unless we look at the structure and unless we look at how that has been built over the centuries, we're not going to really comprehend how to really fundamentally address the problem.
When you look at being able to show this problem on Netflix, what do you hope the impact of this film is for people when they get to see it on Netflix?
I mean, my hope is that black lives begin to not be murdered in the street by police. I mean, honestly, I don't know if you remember the movie 12 Years a Slave.
Of course.
And there was a scene in that movie where the man is being hung by his neck, and the slaves are watching kind of from the corner of their eye, but there's nothing they can do. They continue on. It's an excruciating scene, right? It goes on for a very long time. And that's what this is like, right? It's my people, black people are being murdered in the street by police officers, and many of us, we don't know what to do. We march, we protest, we propose policy solutions, but the vast majority of Americans are watching. They're watching out of the side of their eye. They're not saying anything. They're not doing anything. This film brings it squarely into focus. This film helps us to see more clearly and hopefully, as a result, to take real action.
How did Ava approach both of you to get involved with this?
Through Twitter for me. I have an active online presence and I do some online writing, and some of the things that I was writing about intersected with where she was on this project, so she reached out and asked if I'd like to talk, and I jumped at the opportunity.
How about you?
I was able to actually work with Ava in the past on the issue of prison phone calls and the high cost of those calls and the fact that people in prison were being exploited, and she had a film before called Middle of Nowhere, and we worked with that film to win actually in 2012 the reduced cost of those calls.